Hello, everybody. Welcome to Lupus Fitness 333. My name is Angel. I know it's been a while, but I'm back. Again, I'm trying a new formula, a new way of doing things. So, this is Philosophical Talks number 32, okay? And this is emotional projection. And we're going to talk a little bit about the topic, which is emotional projection, emotional manipulation, and how to deal with that on the private end, okay? And how to practically find a way to overcome this problem. Again, the way it relates to life-altering and life-changing diseases, and even for normal people, is that when you're in a constant state of stress, right? Whether it be medical, whether it be mental, whether it be spiritual, the point is that your mind will start to trick you into believing whatever you're feeling might be coming from an external source, thus emotional projection. Okay, so emotional projection is a psychological defense, okay? In essence, it involves one's own feelings being thrusted upon somebody else to kind of blame them or blame the situation for what you already are feeling inside, whether it's here, whether it's throughout your whole body, okay? And thus, you're taking away that you yourself are feeling that for whatever reason that you are. Whether it be from an insecurity, whether it be from a lack of self-worth, or it could just be that you feel inferior to the situation. Or maybe you perceive something as a threat. You understand? But again, this is all an internal struggle. Okay? It's an internal struggle. It's not really what's happening. You're probably too focused or hyper focused on what you're feeling and not understanding where it's coming from. Okay? Alright, point number 2. This could lead to misunderstandings and conflicts within the relationships, within friendships, and even within work. Okay? The better you understand that it's a feeling that has birthed within yourself, you can better come to a solution with dealing with those emotions. You understand? And back to how it relates to someone who has life-altering or life-changing diseases, or even a mental health issue. This puts a lot of strain on the body, on the mind, and on the soul. So therefore, whatever struggle you have within yourself, you tend to kind of protect yourself. You're protecting your ego by feeling something that probably is unpleasant, that makes you feel angry, that makes you feel sad, that makes you even feel worthless, maybe even, aggressive. It's still a projection that you're throwing onto whoever is around you or whatever the situation is as a way to cope with you not blaming yourself for feeling that in an unprovoked manner. You understand? Okay. Now, the third thing, right, is recognizing the patterns. All right? This requires self-awareness. All right? What kind of self-awareness? Simply put it that whenever you have a feeling, an emotion build up inside you, whether it be through a conversation that you're hearing, or because you're in a group, or a conversation, a dialogue that you're having with somebody else, and something arises in you, right? It could be, now I want to make this clear. I don't want people to associate what I'm talking about with anxiety. Anxiety can be brought upon completely under different circumstances. Nothing could be happening and you could feel anxious and you could get an anxiety attack. That's different from what I'm talking about. Emotional projection is you feeling an emotion arise from within yourself and somehow expressing itself on your body, and thus your body or your mind is trying to protect itself. It goes into, again, a defense mechanism. The defense mechanism is to look for something external to blame so that you can pull away from yourself and not look at yourself as a bad person, or not take blame or accountability for your own feelings. You understand? For all we know, the person, the group, the setting, the environment had nothing to do with what you felt. You just, for some reason, something happened that triggered you, and you felt like you had to do something to keep yourself preserved. You understand? Maybe that's not a proper way to say it, but basically you're defending yourself. You're defending yourself from whatever it is, whatever you perceive as an attack. Okay? Alright. Now, practicing self-awareness when it comes to emotional projection is simply by putting yourself in smaller situations where you know you'll be irritated, where you know you'll get some kind of rise out of yourself through a conversation, through an environment, and you know you can handle that small amount of annoyance or emotional disturbance. You understand? And the point is to find the triggers and learning to accept it, and not saying that, hey, why is this happening? You say, this is happening and I have to sit with it. Thus, you can better assess the situation and realize that there's a great possibility that it's not actually the environment that's causing that, but it's within you. Something within you is causing you to feel this, and thus identifying the trigger helps you better cope with it. Thus, you'll find better ways of dealing with it and then understanding it. And then eventually the understanding will help you move forward in these difficult situations, because emotional projection usually comes about when you're dealing, as far as an intimate relationship, a romantic relationship, it comes from difficult conversations that make you feel like I don't like this, or you don't understand it, and you fail to want to actually understand it, or the feeling of the conversation makes you angry or upsets you or makes you sad, and thus you either throw it onto the person or you somehow defend yourself as though they had incited that emotion in you, which is not true. Okay? In most cases, it's not true. Having difficult conversations is an important life skill. Okay? That's an essential life skill, especially if you want to go far in relationships, in business, and in communities. You understand? You have to be able to you have to be able to resolve conflicts in a very constructive and productive way, while still remaining calm under the pressure of this is a difficult conversation. You understand? Okay. Now, the next thing is, of course, equanimity. Equanimity is the very it's what we're practicing now. It's what you're going to be practicing. Equanimity is basically you staying calm through chaotic, unpredictable situations. You understand? This is necessary, okay? It's necessary because I'm going to put up an image here to explain to you that, let's say you're in a war zone. Equanimity gives you the ability to see and focus clearly on what the objective should be, and thus help you cut through the chaos and reach your goal without being emotionally or mentally disturbed. You understand? This is also part of an essential life skill, right? And for those who have, life altering or life changing or even mental issues, this is key for you getting out of those rough patches in your life where, for whatever reason, if you have a flare or you're going through a tough week, a tough month, a tough year, this helps you plow through those difficult times and still come out on top, okay? Life goes on regardless. Life does not stop. Life is chaotic. Life is full of surprises, both good and bad, and therefore you need to maintain, again, equanimity within yourself to be able to handle those ups and downs while still maintaining the discipline of keeping your eye on the prize and moving forward through all that. Okay? Next thing. The analogy that I would use for people to understand this is basically, think of it, think of it as a frog being thrown in boiling water. That will never work. The frog would immediately jump out of the water. Why? Because it's burning. But if you learn to stay within the water while it boils, right, the frog won't jump. It's happy. It's fine. It's calm. Maybe that's not the best analogy, but point is that you need to be able to handle that type of pressure. Okay? The reason why I think now that's not a good analogy is because the frog could die in that water, but the fact that it feels calm in its own water is why it stays there. Okay? Alright. But basically, you are to remain balanced through all that turmoil. Okay? Because that's the only thing you could truly control. Alright? So that's the other thing about it. You have to learn to focus on what you can control. Now I'm going to put an image here, right? Focus on what you can control. As long as you focus on what you can control and not what you wish you could control or something that's outside of yourself, is just not possible. You can't control other people's feelings. You can't control other people's thoughts. You can't control other people's words. That's an impossibility. But you can control all of that within yourself. And thus, that's the ultimate power. That's the ultimate magic, right? For you being able to control your responses to things. All right, let's move on. Now, one physical way to handle or reset yourself if you're ever having this problem. Let's say you are having a difficult conversation, or you are in a situation where you're starting to get all riled up, right? You can pause or stop yourself or say, can you give me a minute, or excuse me, and go somewhere to splash cold water on your face. Now obviously that's not going to be openly available, but that's one practical way. Remember, I always like to give you guys something that's practical to help you deal with these things. Alright, that's a quick point. Let's move on. Again, back to what I was saying earlier, work your way to bigger triggers. Alright, so constantly put yourself in an environment where you can control your exposure. So let's say you are quickly triggered in a place where it's too many loud noises, right? And you go there and maybe you get irritated or maybe you get angry, but again, it has nothing to do with the actual environment. You're upset about it because possibly you're wanting silence in an area where there cannot be no silence. And that's, again, a thing that can produce emotional projection in you because you're going somewhere expecting the opposite of whatever that environment provides. That doesn't even make sense. Why would you go Again, the analogy here would be like you're going to McDonald's to buy sushi, and you're getting upset at the McDonald's staff that they're not selling sushi, or you start coming up with excuses like, oh, they're being they don't like me, or you play a race card, or you say something like, oh, is it because of this or is it because of that? And that may not even be the case. It's just the fact that you went somewhere where they cannot meet your demands because that place does not even do that. Don't do that. So I'm gonna put an image here, right, to perfectly encapsulate what I mean. All right. The next step into equanimity or dealing with emotional projection is sitting with the emotion. Let's say you can't leave the group. Let's say it's a conference at your job. You have to be there. Let's say you're the important person there. You don't like what's being talked about, but you gotta deal with it. So one thing is you just sit with the emotion. You allow the emotion to come in. Think of the scene in Dune, the first one, the new one, right? With Timothée Chalamet, where they're putting the needle to his neck. Obviously, there's not going to be a needle to your neck, but you're going to envision that within yourself, because most of the time, that's how emotional projection feels like. That you have to escape or you have to defend yourself. And you are experiencing your hand inside the box, which is giving you excruciating pain. And the box, in this analogy, represents the emotion that you're feeling at the time. And you're going to respond with a fight or flight. Okay, in most cases, people who have that problem with emotional projection usually fight back with words. They become argumentative, or they try to somehow change the conversation or take control of the conversation. Again, it still doesn't stop you from feeling what you're feeling. Okay? Now, it's better to sit with it and let it wash over you. Alright? And you do it again, little by little. You put yourself back to the practice. Put yourself in smaller, more manageable situations where you know that will happen, but you know it's not as big or as important like you being at a conference meeting or somewhere where you have to be there and you have to maintain your cool. Alright? Let's move on. The other thing is, when you're having that event, that moment, remember, okay? I'm going to put another image here. Remember to cultivate perspective. If you're not a person who doesn't want to run away, who doesn't want to do something that requires you to take some kind of action, but you're more of an introspective person, then I suggest and recommend that you change your perspective, right? We're going to change our perspective here. I'm going to put an image here. We're going to change our perspective. Cultivate a perspective that is outside of yourself. Put yourself in the other person's shoes, or zoom out, or think of it like in a story or in a movie that you're in the third person and now explaining or narrating whatever you as a character are experiencing. And then change it to somebody else. Look at it from what they see in you. You understand? That way you get to perfectly pause, and now you're doing more of a mental shift that helps you kind of offset the feeling. You understand? And thus helping you maybe seeing it as something not as serious, or it's silly, or something that you realize like, oh, it's not that bad. You understand? So anything you could do to help you kind of minimize the urgency that you feel within yourself. All right. Lastly, and this is the end of it, okay? It is a skill. At the end of the day, what I'm teaching you is a skill. You have to practice it. You have to practice it. Like if you are really struggling with that, you have to practice it, okay? So that's it. Again, thank you for your patience. My name is Angel. This is Lupus Fitness 333, Philosophical Talks number 32, Emotional Projection. Bye-bye.